I would like to introduce Dr. Abhik Gupta. He is a professor and pro-vice chancellor, Assam University, Silchar, India, with a master's and PhD degrees in zoology. The subject areas of his interest are freshwater ecology and pollution, behavioral ecology, and environmental policy and ethics, in which he has published over 100 journal articles and book chapters. A Water Voice awardee from the World Water Council, Fellow of the National Institute of Ecology, India, and Erasmus Mundus Senior Scholar and EU India Namaste Academic Staff Guarantee at the Netherlands and Spain. He has delivered invited lectures at different universities and research institutes in Australia, Spain, USA, the Netherlands, Japan, and India. He has successfully guided 27 PhD and 8 MPhil scholars and completed 5 projects, including 2 international projects. He was the vice president of the Asian Bioethics Association and is currently on the board of directors of MITI International USA. Professor Gupta was the resource person and narrator in several educational telefilms as well, and has a keen interest in poetry and music. Welcome, Professor Abhik Gupta, in this international seminar. Now, I would like to introduce Elisabetta Marino. Elisabetta Marino is Associate Professor, English and American Literature at the University of Rome, Tor Vergata. She is the author of 4 monographs, a volume on the figure of Tamerlane in British and American literature, an introduction to British Bangladeshi literature, a study on the relationship between Mary Shelley in Italy, an analysis of the romantic dramas on a mythological subject. She has translated poems by Maria Mazziotti Gillan, collected in a volume 2006. Between 2001 and 2019, she edited, co-edited 10 collections of essays and a special forum of Journal of Translational American Studies. Welcome, ma'am, in our seminar.
Thank you very much. And it is my pleasure to introduce Professor Gupta, who is going to talk today of a very interesting topic, berries in baskets versus apples in crates, arguing for ecocentrism in a post-COVID world. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And basically, what I'm going to speak today is rather speculative. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
am I clear? Am I clear? Okay. Because I'm in a rather remote area of India, and sometimes we have bad internet connections. So okay. So basically, that can we expect, because this COVID-19 has really baffled us, has really ravaged us, is still ravaging us, and we are in a real crisis. Now, thing is that can we expect a kind of paradigm shift in our relationships with nature, even when we emerge from this crisis, or have we learned some lessons from this crisis? I was just going to speculate over that. Now, basically, I would like to revisit the concept of ecosystem people, given by one of the very well-known conservation biologists, Raymond F. Dossman, in the 1970s and 80s. And there he said that these ecosystem people are small groups of people found in many parts of the world. In fact, all our societies were like that earlier. These societies, they derive all their resources from a very small, maybe one ecosystem or 1 or 2 neighboring ecosystems. And therefore, they're in close proximity with these ecosystems, and they develop a kind of, different kinds of bonds, maybe religious, spiritual, maybe otherwise, maybe cultural, with these ecosystems, and they guard them and save them, because their existence depends on the health of these ecosystems also. Now, and also Dossman was trying to point out that contrary to what we think sometimes, these people are not impoverished. They're not impoverished at all, but maybe not rich in our sense, in a globalized sense, but they could get enough food and other necessities of life from the ecosystems, which they maintained in a good way, in a very, very efficient manner. Now, of course, when we talk about demand, we can say that a single ecosystem cannot meet the demand of a modern human being, because we have so much of demand, particularly in the developed countries. We consume so much of resources, and therefore most of our societies are moving towards, or have moved towards, what he called as the biosphere people, with the biosphere thinking, where resources are extracted from all over the world, transported across thousands of kilometers, and all our economic activities and all these are based on all these economic endeavors that we take around, and which is very dear to us, and we are sticking to it. Now, the question is that maybe the COVID-19, because this particular biosphere culture, biosphere thinking is based on this widespread economic activity on the one hand, and the technological support that it receives on the other. Now, the thing is that if we think this COVID-19 has really made a big dent in both these edifices, because on the one hand, the economic activity had to be stopped. We have gone into physical confinement in many places. And when we are coming out, we are really risking ourselves. We are having some more spikes in the disease. So our economic activity is imperiled worldwide. And at the same time, we have no vaccine till now. We have no effective drug till now. And so the technological support system in which we had a lot of faith as biosphere people has really failed us. So the question is that, did we not know that such a thing could happen? I would say that we knew perfectly well, because this is not the first pandemic of its kind. The last 100 years, we had 4 or 5 such pandemics. We had the Spanish flu, again of bird origin. It came from some bird. And there was no vaccine, nothing at that time. It was simply combated with the usual non-pharmaceutical interventions, which are called all these isolation and all these things. And it killed about 50 million people worldwide. Then we had in 1957 another flu which was also of bird origin, the Asian flu. Of course, of a lesser extent than the Spanish flu, but nevertheless, it killed 1.1 million people, 116,000 in US alone. Then we had in 1968 another H3N2 virus, again of avian origin, killing 1 million people. Then we had swine flu pandemic, again crossing from another species. What I mean to say, then bird flu, which fortunately did not cross over, could have created a havoc. Then we had SARS-CoV, again from palm civet. And then we had MERS from camels. So that means we knew very well, all our scientists, people, epidemiologists dealing in these things, they knew very well that, well, these zoonotic viruses, means coming from another species, non-human species, could really overwhelm us at any point of time, because there were instances of that happening. But nevertheless, you see, when this really happened, when it was first coming up, the COVID-19 was raising its head in Wuhan laboratories and all that, we couldn't really rise in unison, and we couldn't really prevent it at that point of time. It still remains a mystery that why, maybe many people are asking that why couldn't we stop it at that point of time, or even a little after that. We had at least these non-pharmaceutical interventions at our disposal, which we could not really implement on time. I'll go to the answer of that why. What I think, it's again a speculation. The first thing is that we could have taken short-term measures. Short-term measures in the sense, we could have stopped international travel. We could have toned down our economic activities, closed down our industries, which we are now being forced to do by the virus. But we could have done it voluntarily at that time, and we could have tried to save the situation with these short-term measures. But we couldn't even take these in time until things became worse, so we really couldn't do that. So then coming to the second issue, that is of the long-term measures, because we now have COVID. I mean, we are with it. We can't really help it. We have to somehow combat it and hopefully come out of it at some point of time. Maybe the virus will die down, or we'll have some herd immunity, and then it will become a seasonal kind of event, and then we'll have some vaccine and some drug. In course of time, hopefully we'll have all these, and we can combat this. But then we cannot really, there is no guarantee that another one like this will not pounce on us again in another couple of years' time, or 5 years' time, or whatever. Unless we take certain steps, and because what I was trying to think, that why couldn't we take any of these steps? Because we are really very much reluctant and afraid to come out of our biosphere thinking shell, where we have all this consumerist, this entire consumerism, all the goods and all the economic activities, all these are supporting a kind of actually a very kind of a precarious superstructure. And if we really meddle with that too much, then everything will collapse. So we are very much afraid to really come out of this. So the question is that if we have any such pandemics more in the future, can this present system survive? I'm afraid not, because already the very much, the fragile nature of our so-called robust economic and all these systems are exposed by this COVID-19. So I was just wondering that could we have another kind of a model if and when we come out of the COVID-19 situation, and that is strengthening our the local production system in an organic manner. And also because during this COVID-19 we have seen how a lot of animals have come out, not only the spectacular flagship species like rhinos and all and penguins, but also small animals, birds, numerous birds. They have come into the human habitation, maybe wondering what's happened to these people. So they were inquiring about us. So this shows that really given a chance, nature really bounces back. Even after so much, torture we have done, so much injustice we have done to nature, nature still can, smile benignly upon us. And also we have seen how the air quality and water quality have improved in India. We have seen how the rivers have become cleaner. So the question is that means nature has a lot of resilience in it, and we can really bank upon it. And can we go for really not very high, level prioritized conservation, but conservation outside protected areas, more widespread everywhere, conservation everywhere, local production everywhere. And that's what I mean when I gave the title Berries in Baskets. So could we have more of berries in baskets rather than having our apples coming from New Zealand to India, or from India something going to this thing? Yes, these are trades, and these will definitely, globalized trade will be there, and we have a lot of knowledge and information today which is disseminated over the net and all that. Yes, we'll use all that, but again, keep our local base strong, so that we won't have all these problems of workers and hunger and moving staff from one place to another. All these things will be coming down much less. And also, as an ecologist, I hope that this will also again nurture the ecocentric feelings in our mind, our respect for nature, and maybe it will be reflected again. It's already being reflected in our literature, but more and more this literature will become a part of our life. We had a poet, our favorite poet, Rabindranath Tagore, a Nobel laureate poet, and in one of his songs he had said that, well, when the road is not clear, when there is darkness, it's the wildflowers on the roadside which through their scent, which subtly wafts in the air, will show us the way. So I think it's nature finally which we can take recourse to in such a crisis, and try to rethink our relations with nature and come up with a more ecocentric model of development. One of the Indian philosophers, Kumarappa, had said that this is the economy of permanence against the economy of violence. Violence against nature, violence against everything that we are pursuing GDP like anything. Perhaps there is a time to turn back and rethink on this. So this is what I just thought I would share with you. And thanks for again giving me an opportunity to be here. I hope I have stuck to time.
Yes, definitely. If you want to elaborate more, you still have a little bit of time if you want.
I have more or less said that, but basically it's what the rejuvenation of nature. And what I'm thinking that the local, we have neglected the local, we have been neglecting the local too much. So perhaps, perhaps it has to be reflected everywhere. Maybe it will be reflected in literature. Once it is accepted in our life, in our societies, in a more meaningful way, in a wider way, in a more disseminated way, perhaps we could have it more, reflected everywhere. And now I think we have a new avatar for this local thing, because earlier, say 20 years back, we did not have the internet. We did not have such facile communication. We are not going to forget all these things, but our local things now could have wings because of this dissemination, and we could know a lot about each other, but also, have our own inbuilt strength, our own indigenous strength, and we could share that with everybody all around, and could derive a lot of benefit, and at the same time save nature and save our planet. We know how climate change is really looming large over us, and this local protection will also help climate change, not only this kind of zoonotic virus pandemics, but also the kind of afflictions that we can have from climate change. Because I think this is a very big warning for us, COVID-19. There had been warnings, as I have shown, that about 5-6 pandemics were there. We really didn't bother much. We really didn't care. But then now I think this COVID-19 is a very stark reminder that, well, we are not so powerful as we think. We can be brought to our knees just by a small virus. And
Yes.
there could be more dangerous viruses which could jump species and come to us. So this is something we have to think, I think, ponder and try to go for. This is perhaps one of the things which you could debate or discuss, that whether we could have a more ecocentric model of development, in the near future.
Thank you very much. This idea of strengthening the local production system and the development of ecocentric feelings is really important. And I don't know whether there are questions, because I would like to ask you a question, but I don't know whether there are questions from the audience. We'll take them first.
Okay. Sure.
Is there anybody that would like to ask a question? Okay, maybe I will break the ice.
Elisa, there is one question from Mr. Bhavesh. It is from Mr. Bhavesh, and he asks that, is there the time to go back to nature?
Is this the time to go back to nature?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that really. I mean, in a very, very straightforward way, because right now perhaps the task ahead is to somehow emerge from this crisis. But what I was wondering is that once we emerge from this crisis, are we sure that do we go like business as usual, and again have another crisis after 5 years, or forget about this bad experience and go on as usual? Or should we really think back and try to have some rejuvenation of nature, which might help us combating or tackling any crisis coming up in future, and also to repair the damage done by the present crisis? That's what I was thinking. Yes, it's going back to nature, definitely in a some way or other we can say that. Yeah.
The questions? I can't see any other question in the chat, so maybe I will ask you something. What about a shift in
Hello, there is a question. I just posted a question.
I can't see it in the chat. The chat is somehow blocked.
Okay, can I read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay, Sashi Tharoor implied that the post-COVID world might be closer to 1984 Orwellian world, with surveillance, messy economics, corporate takeover, rather than going back to nature. Just see what's happening in the US.
Yeah. There are always possibilities at two ends. Depends on, we always have choices in front of us, options. We are never without options. So this is just one option I'm talking about. It depends on a lot of factors, on the people, popular opinion, on a lot of policy makers and decision makers, and what kind of option we go for, whether we go for more and more a closed kind of cloistered living, or we really go for a kind of ecocentric living where we live with more faith and trust in each other. It depends. Yes, definitely there could be possibilities on either side. I mean, depends on whether you are taking an optimistic view or a rather cynic view or pessimistic view.
Well, I mean, it's not so much that, it's just what's laid out in front of us, and from just what's happening right
definitely.
now.
Definitely. Definitely. This is a paradigm shift, what I'm talking about. So it will take a lot of working or, you know, on part of a lot of people. Otherwise, it can't take place. It can't take place by just a few people.
Thank you.
Okay, maybe I will ask you my question now. So what about a shift in our diet? Because, I mean, towards vegetarianism, because intensive farming is also one of the causes of pandemics and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. During the bird flu epidemic, which did not fortunately become a pandemic or didn't really cross the species barrier to come to humans, you know, this was seen because, I mean, as such, taking meat, I think there is no problem as such. But then when you are, you know, raising millions of chickens in very enclosures like that, then you are inviting, you know, this kind of viruses to flourish. So I think we have to really think about our meat production technologies, which are highly unethical in many sense. So we have to really look at them. But again, it's a very big industry, and a lot of people, their livelihoods are dependent on that. So we have to somehow find alternative ways. The other is, I think there should be a very strict, you know, withdrawal from wild meat of any type.
Definitely.
I think we have to let them live in their habitat and not go for any such, you know, things like having wild meat for whatever reason. That has to be stopped, because there is a whole reservoir of viruses in wild meat, and this is a kind of, I should say, the nature taking it out on us for interfering too much with the natural cycles.
I totally agree. Well, I think we can thank you. If there are no other questions, so we are perfectly on time. So thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you very much too. I'm Chair. Thank you. Namaste.